you. Democratic Senator Al Franken of Minnesota is planning to make a big announcement Thursday morning as his fellow senators call on him to resign. More than half of Franken's Democratic colleagues have said he should step down after two more women say he tried to kiss or grope them. The senator is already facing a Senate Ethics Committee investigation into similar claims made last month. While there are reports Franken will heed his colleagues' advice, a post on the senator's Twitter account Wednesday evening read, quote, Senator Franken is talking with his family at this time and plans to make an announcement in D.C. tomorrow. Any reports of a final decision are inaccurate. CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cortez is on Capitol Hill. So, Nancy, what are you hearing on Capitol Hill right now regarding the senator's big announcement?
Well, it sounds as if there's some turmoil going on either in the senator's office or simply within his own conversations with his close family members, because while many Democratic lawmakers that I spoke to today said that they fully expect that he is going to do what they describe as the right thing and step down, Franken's office has tweeted twice now that he has not made up his mind and that any reporting to the contrary is incorrect. And that is despite, Elaine, what we now know, which is that he has had several conversations with the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, over the course of the day, and that he even met at Schumer's apartment at one point in the day, Franken and his wife and Leader Schumer, in which Schumer reiterated that he believes it is time for Franken to step down. Normally, that is enough to focus the mind of any lawmaker. It is very rare to see a lawmaker decide that they're going to try to hang on when their own leaders, and in this case, about 3/4 of the Democrats in the Senate are calling on them to resign. It still sounds as if he's, at the end of the day, probably going to bow to the pressure and announce that he is stepping down. It's hard to see how he continues. Democratic and Republican senators alike have said that. But at least for right now, he still appears to be hashing this out with his family.
Senator Franken had previously been mentioned as a potential contender for the Democratic presidential nomination, but at this point, is his political career essentially over?
Most likely, and that is what has been so difficult for Democratic lawmakers, Elaine. You know, they really like Al Franken. They view him as a sharp intellectual who is a great messenger, who until 3 weeks ago was highly sought after as a surrogate for various candidates. Hillary Clinton saw him as someone who could deliver a message for her on the campaign trail in 2016. Of course, they enjoyed his sense of humor, but also his ability to grill people on the witness stand during hearings. And so it was very difficult for Democrats to come around to this position. And some senators that I spoke to today simply didn't want to talk about it, and they sort of had anguished looks on their faces, and that they had put out statements saying that it was time for him to go, but they still weren't ready to discuss it face to face, because it's difficult for them to acknowledge that he had done, according to a lot of women, some very unfortunate things, and had made them feel pressured, had made them feel uncomfortable, had groped them in private places. And even though a lot of this behavior took place before he came to Congress, female lawmakers almost universally said today, enough is enough, and we need to send a message to the rest of the country that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated.
Well, Nancy, do Democrats feel they need to take a different approach than the Republican National Committee, which continues to back Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore, despite allegations against him?
Absolutely. They're trying to draw a very stark contrast here, Elaine, and say that Democrats are cleaning house, that they told John Conyers it was time to resign, they told Al Franken it was time to resign, and look at what's going on the other side. The interesting thing when it comes to Roy Moore is that while the president is backing him and while the RNC is getting back into the race after pulling its resources, Republican senators say their views have not changed. They still don't believe that he is fit to join them in the U.S. Senate. They plan to initiate ethics proceedings as soon as he gets here if he wins. They say he is not wanted. And again, normally that is enough to send a lawmaker or would-be lawmaker running for the Hills. But in Moore's case, they are pretty resigned to the fact that that only seems to embolden him. And there's no way at this point, just 1 week out, that he's dropping out of the race.
All right, Nancy Cortez on Capitol Hill for us. Nancy, thank you.